Hello and welcome to HorsePlayers Happy Hour. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornital, back in the New York groove. We are back at Belmont at the Big A, and very happy to be with you for the course of the next, hour and 15 minutes. We'll run it out here for the last three races on this Belmont at Aqueduct Card. We'll check in on our live contest. We'll tell you about the status of the tour. Lots of great stuff happening. Going to take a look at the Princess Rooney. If you're new around here, what is HorsePlayers Happy Hour? Well, it's an interconnected series of contests. We're getting down to the nub. We've got maybe 2 weeks after this. I should know that. I'll look at some point. Should have looked before I came on the air, but hey, I'm a busy man. What can I tell you? But anyway, a couple of weeks left in what we call our regular season. And this interconnected series of contests adds $20,000 to the prize pool in the form of 2 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seats. One of them goes to the winner of the tour, the person that accrues the best scores. And then the other is going to go to the winner of our playoffs. And that's what's going to be starting in roughly 3 weeks' time. I really should have looked this up. Apologies. But the good news is, even if you're not participating, well, 2 bits of good news. One, you've never played in one HorsePlayers Happy Hour game, you can still participate in that prize pool because you qualify for the playoffs if you finish in the top 2 spots any given week. That was our idea. We didn't want to, make this, obviously we wanted it to be more beneficial for people who play every week, but we didn't want to exclude people from coming in late. You can come in late and still participate. Or during our playoffs, we're also going to be running qualifiers for the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge directly, $189 events. But these events are much better, in my view, than the normal ones that happen on Saturday, because the house cut goes to charity. In this case, Therapeutic Horses of Saratoga, as well as the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. And, oh, by the way, these games on Thursday cost $20 to play. And not only do they get you into this interconnected tour with the 20,000 added, they're also traditional feeders into the Saturday $189 game. So anyway, that's an overview of what we're up to here. And now that we have enough people watching, we bring in the star of the show. At least that's what he tells himself. He's my good friend, Jonathan Kinchin. What's up, JK?
Yeah, I think am I stuck on mute? No, I'm not.
No, you're good.
PTF, I'm just hanging out here, looking at the city. Looks like it's hot outside today. It's one of those days where I haven't gone outside yet.
It was nice this morning, but you must be a busy man. Oh, well, there's 2 reasons why you don't go outside and it's 4 o'clock. Either super busy, you got up minute to minute, you're working on a million things, which you do from time to time. The other is you got too drunk last night and you got a little bit of a late start and didn't get your exercise in. Which one is it?
It's definitely the second one, but I'm going to blame it on my in-laws. They came into town. We went to a 5 o'clock dinner that somehow turned into a 2 a.m. It's a fun game to play.
I don't understand. A 7-hour dinner? I mean, I'm Italian, and that's ridiculous.
Oh, no. Dinner wasn't that long.
Okay.
But then we went to dinner at an Italian place, one of the coolest restaurants, best restaurants in the city called Massara. So we go to Massara. We hit Massara at 5 o'clock, ordered basically everything on the menu. Then we left there and went to the Chelsea Hotel to have a drink. One of the coolest places I've ever hung out.
It's awesome.
Like the lobby bar there, had a drink there. Then we came back to the house and we did a very fun game, Pete, that I'm sure would make your father very proud, where you take you get a smart TV, you take a TV remote and you pass the remote and every one person gets a YouTube video, a music video to play. And then you pass it around and it's so you kind of feed off of each other. You might have a song in your mind.
You're making segues.
The person in front of you plays another one. So it makes you and you just keep passing the remote and
that's awesome.
Yeah, 2 a.m. So
I love that. We've messed around with that as a car game using Spotify, where you have to come up with, like, I can't remember what parent and I did. It was like either a word in the title had to be the same in the next, or it had to be some sort of connection through the artist. And we created a pretty sick playlist that went back and forth from, Broadway to punk rock to Britney Spears to we were all over the shop in the best possible way.
It's a hard game for me though, because you know
how a rock and roll guy, yeah.
They were going with like Pink Floyd and the Beatles and and all these other things that and then it's like my turn. I feel like an asshole playing Jay-Z.
You shouldn't though. That's what makes it fun. I mean,
I was messing up the groove to a certain extent, so I had to try to find
it. Well, we'll get you. I've got a record or two behind me that your in-laws would dig, so we can we can start your. Well, I'll design you a curriculum. I'll get you the good stuff. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in. They're subtle, but there are definitely interconnections with rock and roll and the history of rock and roll, especially like black music from the 60s and 70s and hip hop. I mean, a lot of those grooves are where hip hop came from. So
of course,
it's not as crazy as it sounds,
I always when I talk to people about in this category, I always like to name drop, and I'm sure you do it when you're in London. You like to name drop my brother when I'm talking to.
I'm a hero when I say that I've seen MK play at a wedding in front of 100 people. They get very envious.
When I'm talking to a certain generation of 60-year-old Caucasian fellows that grew up in the tri-state area, I try to name drop your dad. Give us the breakdown. You've said it well before. If you grew up in a certain time, tri-state, what was it again?
I know three if you know my dad, I instantly know three things about you. You've spent some time in the tri-state area. You've got great musical taste, and you're of a certain age, and it always invariably gets a laugh.
So I've talked to Joe Benita's dad about this. And her mom, did his show play in Connecticut?
It would have played in Connecticut. I don't know if it would have gotten as far as New Haven where they are, though. Radio signals are weird like that. I don't know. They might have been listening to whatever the cool Hartford rock station was or whatever. I do need to talk to them about that, though I think it would have came up if they knew him. I think they were like, it's just, I mean, how funny is it that now media tell us out, if you're in the comments here, do us a favor, tell us where you're from. This is ridiculous. We'll have people from all over the world who chime in. Meanwhile, my dad, because the signal wouldn't have go 20 miles further along the way, it's possible, Ron and Nancy S didn't get to hear him. I mean, it's such a difference with the digital revolution, man. It's a thing.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
We've got 4 minutes to our first contest race that we're going to be covering on this show. Why don't we take a quick look at the leaderboard? There were some interesting things going on before. We'll see how it's shaking out now. As weeks are going on, I'm not saying I'm ever going to be good at producing this show, but I will say that I'm getting better. And I now am not going to promote an out-of-date leaderboard, but I'll give you the real one here. And we see Stephen McNatt, a contest veteran, up there, 59.30. Terrence Frank in second. Good turnout today, 179 people turning up, even with the early start time. I love that. It's been good to see these numbers holding. Next year, I want 200 every week, though. Anyway, we'll get to that in due time. Production meeting, not in the middle of the show. Wendy Long, who was kind enough to join us earlier in the season on our BCBC Diaries show, she is in third place. Max Schnepp, Mark Rudy, Mike Sutton, Matthew Blanchett, Stefan Gravina, Howard Kaplan, Jeff Van Dree in the money. Writer Michael Domable is up there. William Smith, Julie LeBoyko, our tour leader. Chance to get some more tour points here. This is kind of fun. Jackson Muniz, who is one of our stars of Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge Diaries, he had a huge pick 5 hit the other week that he told us about, where he technically won enough for a BCBC entry. But I think smartly, as a younger guy, he's tucked some of that money away, and he's using some of it to try to qualify. He's also being smart and trying to qualify with short money here at HorsePlayers Happy Hour. And he's in a really interesting position, particularly if he can get this 5 runner in here at Belmont at the Big A, because this horse is 6-1 and would put him in magnificent position. He's got these 3 entries, and then it's interesting to note how he splits after. So very good chance for Jackson to advance to play Saturday. And if things break right, maybe he gets up into the exacta. And then we have another person playing all 3 the same in the form of John Marino with the very same score. So that's certainly interesting to note. Then Daniel Edwards, also in that scrum. We'll figure out who ends up where in a little bit. Putting you on the spot here, JK, word of warning, though your quick capping has been one of the best things on the In the Money Media Network this season on this show. I think I'm not joking. You're something like 5 for your last 8. Who's going to win race number 7 at the Big A. And if you need to
what are the odds? What are the odds on the 11?
The 11 runner is 6-1.
Yeah, I'll take the 11.
Okay, what did you have any angle? Or you just
Well, I mean, so horse that Chad dropped for 40. Linda took the horse, and it was an off the turf race, so the horse ran bad. So the form is just like a tad bit dirty. Yeah, look. I was born dancer makes sense, but pretty short. So I'll take the 11.
Yeah. All right, I like it. We'll see. Kick a buck based on the success you've been having. I like now. Perrin would really get excited about this idea that Trish just put up there in the comments. A Britney Spears sing along with that could be very entertaining. She would be into it. I can tell you that.
What's your karaoke go to?
God, I mean, I'm all over the shop with karaoke. I like a band that you won't know particularly, I'm going to guess, but there's a lot of good T-Rex songs for karaoke. But really, what's ever there? Marshall and I actually once did a duet on Back in the New York Groove, the Kiss tune, Peter Criss from the Peter Criss solo record. That, of course, was our closing theme for a little while. I don't think it was ever on the Players Pods. I throw it on once in a while, but it was more when we were doing those daily shows for our friends over at Naira. That's a good one. What about you? Where do you lean?
Oh, I'm the guy that sits in the corner and acts like he's way too cool to do it.
That's terrible.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what I would do.
What do you mean? You've never done karaoke? Like this is supposed to be you're telling us what you do, not a you've never done karaoke thing. I mean, that's just crazy.
I can't think of the last time I did do karaoke. I don't know. I'm trying to think of it.
Well, you can, I would assume there's plenty of stuff that you could just get. I mean, you're musically or you're always listening to tunes. What would you?
Yeah, I don't even know what it would be.
Feet to the fire. You got to come up with something here. We'll give you a minute to think about it. You're better with the quick picks for the horses than necessarily the quick picks for the karaoke, apparently. But we'll give you some time to think about that and come back to us here as they're about to load in the gate. My voice is a little off. I'm not even going to pretend to do whatever. We're just going to talk while the race is on, but we can talk about what's happening in the race. That might work out. Oh, fun thing for later. Little Brown Jug today, harness racing action. This stream is going to end, and our Little Brown Jug stream from our friends on the harness side is going to pick up. I'm going to stick around. I won't really be sticking around so much as we'll stop the stream and start that one. But I'm going to go on with those guys for a minute and chat about that. And our own Drew Coatney is actually live at the Little Brown Jug today because it takes place right near where he lives in Ohio. But it sounds like a fun party. I mean, you got to give it to harness racing with these big events in the middle of the week. It's kind of fun to have this kind of action and, great harness content over on inthemoneypodcast.com. If you're interested, head over there, sign up for the harness newsletter, which we do separately from Thoroughbreds, because there is a lot of fun crossover. So anyway, that's something to consider. You ever been to a harness race?
No.
That's shocking. You've never done the degenerate doubleheader. I never dragged
you.
Oh
no. Yes, I have. I was there when Paul Matisse's son had his graduation party. I think maybe.
Yeah. That sounds. I mean, that tracks.
I feel like Bobo had his graduation party there, so I was there for that. And then don't get me wrong. I mean, my dad would love to deposit $50 into Twin Spires on a Wednesday night. And lose it all at Mohawk, betting our address. So, I've seen it. I just haven't.
Maybe that scarred. Maybe that experience scarred you. Very, very funny. I'm hoping to do. I want to learn more about it. I think it's interesting. I mean, from an ownership point of view, I love the idea that the horses run so much more often. And if you got to be careful where you're playing. At Bobo's graduation party, a $50 bet would have made the 6-1. 8-5 or whatever, maybe shorter. But some of these harness tracks, especially today, but I mean, you mentioned Mohawk generally, like these are very good pools. All right, let's pick up what's happening.
Real quick on the harness note before.
Yeah, please.
Bob Edwards of E5 Racing, a guy by the name of John Fielding was part breeders. Part of the team that brought you the breeders of Rushing Fall. So Bob has a good relationship with him, and they also come from the harness world. him and Fred Hertrick, and Bob's got a few harness horses now, and he said it's a lot of fun. They run a lot more often, and so he's been enjoying it. Come on with this 11.
Yeah, your 11 is making a late move, staying on late, but it's going to come 10-4-11 there at the Big A. Go back to that leaderboard for a second. Look at these top numbers, looking for 10s, and see who ended up where there in that 7th race at back. Good news for Wendy Long. Good news for Stefan Gravina. Was the 4 any kind of price?
I don't. Let's see. I just look at 15-1 morning line, and in shameless plug, I had David Aragona, the morning line maker, on JK +1. If David has the horse 15-1, he probably went off close to 15-1. Am I right about that?
You probably are. We'll see in a second here. Hang on, I got to grab a phone call. Vamp for a sec.
Okay. Well, I'll look up to see what the price was. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Belmont. Okay. Of course, I'm in the slow-mo video now. The 4 was 12-1, but 12-1. So David was very close. Yeah, I had David Aragona on JK +1 to talk about the morning line, and hopefully there's no morning line nerds on here who like to get mad about the morning line not being right, like it actually matters. It's a prediction of what he believes the public is going to do. So don't get worked up.
Don't get worked up. That's good advice. Thank you for helping me out there. I thought that was a call to schedule something important. It was a call to schedule something unimportant. So
there you go.
They can go away. Yeah, I'm pumped. I have it. That is top of my queue. I'm waiting for a long walk to listen to you and David go on. He's been great on shows when we've had him on Baby Talk, and the extra levels of work that he does. And I know he is a big, probably the biggest, even bigger than us, JK, influence to our friend Michael Domable, who does such a good job. I can sort of see how he is from a similar handicapping school. It's similar to what we do, but it's a little different. It's a little more like, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like creative. I'm just feel like I'm so rooted in the fundamentals that there are some races where I'm just not going to be creative enough to come up with certain long shots. But players like David and Michael do, and they frequently win. And I love reading their stuff. And one of the ways I love to use a public handicapper is if I think it's a spread race and I read some creative case a David or a Michael makes for a long shot, I'm going to be inclined to throw that horse in. I'm not going to, if it's a race where I think it's straightforward, I can lock it up with 2 numbers and they put up some 8-1 shot and I look and I say, oh, it's kind of cute, but maybe for underneath, not for me. I'm not going to change necessarily what I'm doing. But if it's a race where I've already established the fact that I don't have that much of an opinion, that's where I love reading what other people do. Do you look at anybody else anymore, or are you completely, or will you ever be influenced for if you do talking horses and somebody makes a compelling case? I guess the somebody would be Andy, you usually do it with. Would you consider throwing that horse in? I thought there was an example of that recently with some horse.
Yeah. So, and I'll tell Andy this too, to his face. I'm not just saying it. Andy will come up with some horses that are absolutely senseless to me sometimes. But a lot of the reason I think that he does that, I think he does it for the right reasons. He does it because he doesn't want to. If he doesn't like the favorite, doesn't want to give the favorite, but he also can take that as an opportunity to potentially teach someone something that they can then find a long shot, because he always has a sound reason.
Yeah,
I just
don't rationale. We might just not be able to see it, but there's some interesting. I wish I could think of an esoteric angle, but I mean that stuff can work. It really can. I mean, for me, a lot of it will come off just like weird trainer stuff that I've noticed over the years, and you get almost like an intuition. Like I picked a horse at Kentucky Downs. I mean, it was 55-1 shot. Didn't run great, ran 4th, but I mean, you give out a horse like that on top, it can help somebody in their super, and that's the thing. And this is a show I'm desperate to do in the off season, is a show about public handicap, like what we do, this very topic where we talk to different people who've done this for a long time and ask them, like, what are you trying to do? Like, what is the goal? And I don't think there's one answer, I mean, for me, first and foremost, I believe in the importance. If I have something clever, you're darn right I'm going to try something clever. I read the 55-1 shot on top at Kentucky Downs being a prime example. But if I don't have something clever, I want to give you the darn winner. And I'm not going to sacrifice giving you the winner just because it's a short price, just because the horse I think is going to be the winner at a short price, just because, I don't have I don't want to give out any favorite. I don't want to give out a bad favorite ever. And I get upset if my opinion ever evolves and I feel like I've done that. But you hear where I'm going with this? I think different people have different attitudes. Some public handicappers, I think Andy will give a favorite, no problem. But there's others who I've seen over the years who it seems like they're almost like allergic to it, to the point where it's cutting off your nose to spite your face sometimes.
Yeah, no, Andy will pick a favorite in the right setting. So to go all the way back to answer your question, even I think it was Jockey Club Gold Cup Day, that Sunday, closing weekend. I did Talking Horse with Andy that morning. I think there was a pick six carryover. I played the pick six that day, and there was a turf sprint in there. And on that morning on Talking Horses, Andy made a case for a horse that was like 40-1. And he made a very good case. And I think the case was more complex than this, but it was one of those you had to look off of the past performances. So lifetime past performance to see the last time the horse had turf sprinted, where it actually made sense that the horse might appreciate getting back to the turf sprint, but it would not have shown up on a regular past performance if you weren't looking at lifetime. Yeah. And out of pure respect for him in a race that I thought was wide open, I used him as a B horse, and he won at like 40-1. Unfortunately, Arthur's Ride stunk up the place, and so the ticket went down in flames. But yeah, but typically no, I don't. Look, if someone calls me Mike Maloney one time this summer texted me and said, this was actually a funny situation. I had done Cart Talk with Dwayne Lucas, and he had kind of expressed that he really liked a first-time starter he had. But I just kind of took it in stride. I was like, oh, okay, whatever, Okay, Dwayne. I see you enter horses. I'd imagine you probably like a lot of them. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying, I wasn't going to change my opinion. And that morning, Michael Maloney texted me that he liked the horse on Handicapping. So if I can get two different reasons to like a horse from, I will concede to that. And actually, I singled the horse and he ran second. But yeah, I'll listen, but not too often anymore, really.
Yeah. But honestly, it's the audience who I really want to hear from too on this question is what do you want? There's some people, I know there is sort of a knee jerk, like if it's a 3-1, oh, it's a favorite. I could have come up with that myself. They're only looking to public handicappers for the creative ones, but I don't know. For me, it's like the discussion around it or the writing around it, and that combination of help me feel more secure about pressing, help me find a horse to include in a spread race,
I've always felt like, at least at the start, and don't get me wrong, I used to tape HRTV every night and watch, what's that show that Aaron used to do, Against the Odds. Because when you're first starting, you're still trying to learn how to find what winners look like. I've been around the game long enough to know I can make a case for every horse in every race somehow, some way. And so I don't, I'll listen to a Sean Borman, I'll listen to a Duke Matisse or a Paul Matisse, or if Marshall has an opinion, or if there's something you're passionate about, but am I looking through my Twitter feed and so says that doesn't really move me.
Chris has a good point about this, that it really, the race starts with the winner, regardless of price, then that dictates how to wager. In other words, if it's a strong favorite, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad betting event. It could be a great betting event. I don't know. Some of our best bets we've done together certainly have been finding that right, backably priced winner to key and horizontals. I mean, that's some of the good stuff.
Funny enough, this actually brings up a good point. So, this is I'm gonna get this off my. I've been meaning to get this off my chest. So
please,
HorsePlayers Happy Hour is basically like JK's therapy.
Do you want? I'll give you the full screen. Yeah, hang on. Here we go. No,
I don't want the full screen. I want to be able to look at you. I don't want the full screen. I like to look at you to see what you're doing. No. So, and I talked about this a little bit. So over this summer, they wanted us to do like that little contest thing between me, Paul, and Andy, where we had a bankroll and we played. And the reason I'm thinking about it is because your question about, as a public handicapper, what you do, this came up a little bit because I had explained it before. And when one of the trolls was giving me a hard time about this recently, they actually screen grabbed our conversation about this last time and like used it as like, I don't care. So let me explain. So we played in this contest.
Get that screen recording ready, troll.
Yeah, hit it. So we played. We did a contest, and which was fine. I was excited to play. It was going to be fun. You know, I would invite people to look at my Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge plays, and you'll see how I play. You'll see what I try to do. I try to find safe spots where I have strong opinions on short price horses, and I'm willing to bet a lot of money rather than some people who chase 40-1 shots and bet a little. Do your thing. I just don't play that way. So in this contest, that was my approach, that I was going to just be aggressive a couple of times, but the producers and the powers that be on the show would not let me take big swings. They wanted us to do like $200 a day. Okay. Can I do like multiple doubles tickets? No, it's got to be one screen, one graphic. Okay. All right. We get a new graphics guy in who, for some reason, I submitted a play, $150 double at noon, and it didn't make the show for a 4 p.m. race that I would have scored for $3,000. Annoying, whatever. No big deal. Deal with it. So basically, it got to a point.
Cross that guy off your holiday card list. Is that graphics guy off the holiday card list?
Whatever. Yeah, whatever. But I got to a point where I didn't want to chase things through. I was just kind of over it to a certain extent. So I was literally waiting until closing day, because on closing day they were going to let me go all in. Well, Andy scores on Sunday because he hits a $50 win on that 40-1 shot, a $50 win on the winner of the Jockey Club Gold Cup. So Andy's bankroll goes to like 6,000. So finally, I'm in a position where I have to be pretty aggressive on closing day to try to get there. So what I did was I went all, I had like $1,300, $1,400. I went all in with that Christophe Clement, bridesmaid, run second 3 or 4 times in a row in the first, but was had a big figure edge on everyone else. And I played doubles, weighted doubles with that horse into a Chad first-time starter that was supposed to be really good that ended up winning, and a Michael Maker horse that was second-time starter who ended up running second. And I bet it efficiently in a way where if the Christophe horse wins, then basically I'm like drawing live for like $3,000 to either one of those horses, whether it's the Chad first-time starter or the other one. But all these trolls on the internet screen grabbed the first wager, not the second wager, just the first one, and then wanted to point out how inefficient it was. But it wasn't inefficient because I was covered by the other horse as well. So I couldn't have just bet the Chad horse. They said, why did you just bet the Chad horse to win? Because I wouldn't have had the protection of the horse that ran second to the Chad horse in the second leg, whatever. My point is that as a public handicapper on TV, the TV is limiting to what we really feel. It's not good television. And I've told that person from Las Vegas who lives in his mom's basement, I've said it to him personally. It is not good television for me to give a 14-ticket ABC weighted ticket. I can't do that on TV, buddy. It doesn't work. So when we give tickets on TV, it's meant I look at it as it's one person in passing that's going to see it. You know, I would never tell someone to make plays like that consistently with real money when you're, but we're playing a game on TV against, I'm just trying to beat Andy so I can make fun of him. You know what I mean? That's it. And I was trying to do it in a way where I could double up early, get $3,000, and then bet all $3,000 on Ferocious, and then I would be able to catch Andy. And, you know, it didn't work out. But, like, these people act like they, you know, like the FBI, like they caught me making the stupidest wager ever in the world.
That is funny. I didn't know that about the part. I've clearly muted all the right people because I know none of what you speak of, which is great. I had that experience at Saratoga actually multiple times where somebody came up to me and said it was very it was gratifying and horrifying at the same time. Can't believe what they're saying about you. Can't believe what we like. They were meaning to be supportive, but I can't believe what they're saying about you. It's like, I have no idea what you mean, and I'm so happy I have no idea what you mean because I've muted all the right people. But I am a little upset when you say that because then when somebody who is obviously on your side says it to you, you do wonder for half a second, but I don't look. I don't care. I don't look. It's you know, what I think people don't understand on Twitter is like the way that algorithm works. Like you might see, because you're interested in horse racing or whatever, and you're not liberal enough with the mute button, you're going to see like a lot of terrible people, but it's basically like a 14-person echo chamber.
Oh,
if you mute them, you see nothing. And it's not like it doesn't get promoted to a whole ton of feeds. It's like a slice of a slice of a slice. I mean, it's not
my favorite thing to do when someone says something ugly. My favorite thing to do is to look to see how many people liked it, and then take a screenshot of it, send it to them, and say, "This is pretty pathetic that only 3 people liked it," and then block them so that they can't respond. It's one of my favorite moves.
That's good. That's very good. I mean, if you're not going to go for the full-on ignore, I think that's.
Oh, great. The DM and block is a strong move.
It is good. If I ever got it,
you can't do it to someone who's got a few followers because then they'll screenshot it and wear it like a badge of honor.
Yes. You don't want right, but if they only have 14 followers anyway, it basically doesn't matter. No, that's a good way of approaching that. Jorge chimes in. Hola, Jorge. Where in the world are you? We want to hear this stuff. We got some of our regulars chiming in there. We've got that's very funny. Chris chiming in. I should retweet you more, Chris. You have a lot of good ideas and a recent nice contest win too. I have a feeling there's a valuable prize with your name on it coming up soon. Great to see you, Rob, in the comments as well. Yeah, let's hit us up with your questions, whether they're the Breeders' Cup, etc. We do have one little bit of business, JK. Before, if you don't mind, I'm going to keep you on through the second race, but I want to talk to you about the Princess Rooney is the bit of business because we do have. It's interesting. The Breeders' Cup schedule changes every weekend. Let me make sure or every year. Let me make sure to check. I think the Princess Rooney. Yeah, that's all we have this weekend. Next weekend it starts to get wild. Vosburg, Pilgrim, Ack, City of Hope Mile, California Crown, Miss Grillo. That's all next weekend. So we'll have to plan on a video or two.
Yeah,
about those.
I'm really excited about the Miss Grillo. I think there's a potential strong Breeders' Cup betting challenge play in there for me, or at least we'll see what happens. But I believe that the maiden race at Saratoga, the 2-year-old filly turf maiden race that had Raining Flowers in it, yes. Opulent Restraint, Good Long Cry, another horse that came back and won. I think that was the best 2-year-old filly turf race that we saw. I'm assuming that Opulent Restraint is going to run in the Miss Grillo. We'll see where Raining Flowers shows up or what they decide to do with Good Long Cry. But I'm going to have my eyes on that one pretty heavy to see what happens there.
I'm so pleased to see so much cross-pollination with California Crown, too. I'm going to be doing all those races. We're going to cover that differently than we've ever done before. I want to create a landing page for all the cool wagers they have. They have an all-stakes pick 5. They have an all-turf pick 4 or 5. We're going to have this all listed in one place. But then beyond just listing it in one place, I'm going to try to hyperlink out to all the content, whether it's videos for the races that we do or written pieces. We're going to have you covered soup to nuts for the California Crown. I'm excited about this event. Going to be out there. Oh, the rumors are true. Edison chiming in the comments. The Ray Cotolo will be joining us to help us. He's going to do the last race at Aqueduct with me, but he's also going to help us get you all prepped for Little Brown Jug action that's going to be happening shortly after we go off air. But Princess Rooney is the win in your in race this weekend. Filly and Mare sprint berth on the line, and very strong looking favorite to me, JK, here in the form of number 5, Soul of an Angel, coming off this turn back in distance. Home game for Safi Joseph more than it is for Soul of an Angel, who's actually been up in Saratoga working up there in this lovely weather. That's where my eye was drawn. Not much of a price for you there. 8-5 on the morning line. You have anything clever for us in this 7 furlong sprint, the Princess Rooney?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do. I mean, we'll start with the favorite that you mentioned, Soul of an Angel, who is cutting back, who ran in that personal instant last time. I'm a little bit concerned. I mean, this is a pretty sharp cutback for a lot of speedy horses. If you look at her past performances, it takes all the way back to still scrolling.
Yeah.
Still scrolling. I'm still scrolling. Okay, so maybe I'll just say never. I mean, she hasn't sprinted since December 5th of her 2-year-old year, and she was 99-1 that day. The rest of her career, it's all been miles and miles and miles and mile and a halves. Last time they tried her at 1 1/8 miles. I'm going to try to beat the course.
I don't blame you. I hear where you're going with that. I mean, she could be in another county early. It was a bit of an Insafi we trust play for me, and just from the fact that looking through this field, I mean, the pace should be fast, shouldn't it?
Well, I got you on a Safi in Safi we trust. I'm going to go with the 3 Hall and Ice, who, if you look at her race 2 back, she ran extremely well on this racetrack at this distance. Then she went to Charlestown and tried the 7 furlongs, didn't go well, but that's weird. It's like a bull ring. Who knows? Maybe she hated it. Now she's back to Gulfstream where she's won before at this distance. So I'm still good with your in Safi we trust. I'm just going to go with the other one.
He does have some very strong representation here with that runner, as well as the long shot, the outsider of the 3, Imorna, representing him here. What did you make of this runner on the outside, number 10, Beth's Dream? This was one I thought was going to be facing a very different pace situation potentially. Granted, a lot of these other speed runners in here are at the longer end of the price spectrum, so maybe she can still find a way to boss him. She's real cool, 6-year-old Florida bred, 9 of 16 lifetime, but I was thinking this could be a tough spot for her. I was going to try to oppose.
No, she can absolutely win. I don't have a problem with her at all. She's drawn well towards the outside. She's won 4 races in a row. She's going for number 5. She's won 8 times out of 11 that she's run at Gulfstream, so she likes it there. But look, she's been odds on in what, 4 of her last 3 of her last 4 wins. She was odds on. I just feel like she's going to be a little bit shorter than I prefer. I'm not going to let her beat me in any multi-race types of situations, Beth's Dream, but I definitely am sticking with the 3 Hall and Ice as the value player.
Up in class, hotter pace scenario, not going to be easy. This is a good question for Chris about turf figures in New York. You have to be very cautious of the turf figures in New York because of these slow paces. I think, and a lot of the published figures end up being more form/class figures than traditional speed figures, and they almost have to be. But what I would say is, if you're looking at class, if you're looking at collateral form, who beat whom stuff, and most especially if you're looking at late pace, and also if you're paying attention to the race design of today's race, I think you can put that all in a hopper and still, you're not going to be able to make as confident a bet in a New York turf race as you are in a dirt race in a whole lot of places. Heck, they sometimes grab in New York on the dirt too, which really gets me going. But I think you have to factor it in. I'm not going to, want to key my day around a horse that might end up pace compromised in a turf route in New York. But I think that I think you got to take the final time figures with a grain of salt. I mean, I think that's all fair, but I wouldn't say it rises to the level of making them, unbettable or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, caution probably is advised on turf racing generally because of the dynamics, especially, 2 turns in paceless races. A lot of weird crap can happen. Where do you stand on Chris's question, JK? Did I get it right?
I'm a huge, I don't want to say the word hate because I hate generalizations in racing. Oh, the New York turf figures are always so slow. It's a throwaway
figures
comment.
are slow. The paces are slow.
But I think that the comment wasn't the comment about the figures though.
It was, can you trust the figures because the paces are slow? That's how I read it.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can trust the figures because the figures are what the figures are, but you have to take into consideration what the pace is.
Right.
But so you can trust the final number because the final number is real. But if you look at the final number as like it is what it is. If a horse runs a 68, then that horse is a 68 type horse. That is a mistake. But that's anything. Every number needs to be evaluated and understood how it was earned. And I don't think that's just New York. I mean, I think it's everywhere. Turf figures are very pace dependent, which is why I think Timeform US is a wonderful tool for that. Like you mentioned, if you can find a way to have some late pace numbers, Timeform US has that a little bit. Looking at the fractions, the internal fractions, and understanding those fractions has a lot to do with it. I get itchy when people say like blanket statements. I think you want to be careful, in my opinion, not to do those types of things.
1 minute to race 8 at the big A here. Give us another quick cap. Well, the last one was a rare non-winner for you on this show, Jonathan. Let's see if you can get back to winning ways with these fillies and mares 3 and up, going 6 furlongs in the allowance ranks. Timeform has the pace as fast. You can take out number 7, by the way. It will not go. Amazing Doty, is that your favorite here? 2-1. Is this updated? I can't tell if I'm looking at a morning line. No, these are current odds. This horse under Erad, I think, is going to take a lot of heat from the 6 and the 8. Just looking at the Timeform pace map, I'd be inclined to go in a different direction because there's potentially other speed in this race as well. First Class Cat, maybe a little bit interesting, coming out of a race closing into blue fractions at Saratoga with some decent late pace under Flavian Pratt for Linda Rice. That's my Instacap idea, but you're the king of the Instacap. Who's going to win it?
I'll take the 2, First Class Cat.
We're rowing in together. That's good.
Yeah, they're going to run a little bit here. There seems to be a lot of pace, so I'd imagine that the pace will be honest enough.
There you go. Oh, and Chris clarified his comments a little bit, talking about making figures. Is that what he said? Not making figs himself because he can't trust them. But you're right. I mean, everybody's making. I mean, it all depends on how you're making figs and what the process is. But I will say this: there's a lot more. You say the figs are the figs, JK, but I mean, they do a lot more projecting in these New York turf races, I think, than they do in New York dirt races, for example. So it's like it becomes a different kind of tool when there's a lot of projection.
I think the reason that the buyer projects is because his figure is not pace infused. So to tell an honest story, he has to project a little bit. You know, he can't have the, let's just say
demonstrably slower horses running.
Far Bridge, right? Far Bridge as an example, right? He walked the dog on the front end with some of the best horses going long on the turf in this country currently. I guarantee that raw number, based on how slow they went, probably wasn't very good. But he knows those horses are capable of running 90, 100 type numbers, so he projects it up to let you know that, it probably was somewhere in that arena, but the pace made it tricky to navigate. I
still want to be in the meeting with Appleby and the 2 jockeys before the race, where they both somehow came away with the idea that they were the ones that was supposed to grab it. 2 horses, they went on the lead their previous race. Neither of them decided to go.
Andy picked that horse, and so we were sitting on the show, and I was like,
"He didn't pick him to go wire to wire."
I said, "That wasn't the trip, though. You thought, right?" He's like, "Absolutely not." And I say it still to this day. If someone were to tell me that a horse went wire to wire, I would have picked 7 other horses to do it, and there was only 6 in the race.
but it is fun. I mean, that is a good example of the perfect example, really, for what you were talking about, Jonathan, about how these things can get a little bit gummed up in terms of, the figures you have to give, etc. This horse is winding up, but too far back, I'm afraid, unless these front two just stop to an absolute walk. But it doesn't look.
It's going to be closer than I think.
I hope you're right. I'm worried this 5 Amazing Doty has put the thing away. Yeah, the 2's just sort of one pacing it now. Might get second. That'll be close. I think just missed. What did the far side hold? Who got second?
Oh, I thought it was inside.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Inside.
Far side. I got you. You went all British on me.
I know, because they run in both directions, so it gets confusing. But yeah, we both think that our tip did not get up for second. No doubt about the winner, though. Amazing Doty. I thought it was going to be a tougher pace scenario than it ended up being, and the horse ran very well. Stick around with me till I do this next leaderboard update, and then I can vamp for a bit. That was a great question, Chris. Come up with anything else you want to know. We got the super slow-mo here. This will tell us pretty definitively if it was, in fact, the... Ooh, it's closer. It's a little close on that shutter cam. I don't think that the 2 won, but it looked like it was closer to maybe... I'm not going to rule out a heater, but it's probably still just the 2. We'll see, or excuse me, just the 8. We'll see how that goes. No, it was the 2. It was the 2. There you go. The naked eye can fool. That it's hard on the pan, because it's just you don't exactly know where the camera is, etc. It can flatter one side or another. Watching this come back one more time. Let's see. Yeah, it's weird because the camera straightens up, but at the very end. Anyway, whatever. We gave them a second place finisher. Nothing really to brag about. But Flavian Pratt and First Class Cat will complete the exacta with Amazing Doty there in race number 8 at the Big A. 1 race left to go in this contest. When this goes official, we'll update the leaderboard. Oh, you know what I might ask? I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I'm going to update the leaderboard. I'm going to ask you to vamp for 30 more seconds. I'm going to go get a drink, and then I will take it home. How about that?
All right. I can vamp.
Yeah, not yet though. Let me do the, unless you want to do the leader vamp and include the leaderboard. But no, let me do the leaderboard and then we'll go because I'm curious to see what happens here as well. What do you have anything fun cooking tonight? Going to be a mellow night after you got after it a little bit yesterday?
Yeah, I'm gonna chill. Just see how many times we can DoorDash today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one of those.
What's my record? My record for DoorDashes in a day is probably 5.
Really? That's impressive.
Yeah.
Is it all food, or do they bring anything you want?
Yeah, you can get anything. I mean, okay. But yeah, 5. I mean, the weirdest thing I've ever delivery serviced was one night I had Austin, and I forgot that it was Easter the next day. And I needed some Easter eggs to plant around the house. So I had someone go to Target because I couldn't leave the kid at the house. So I had, of course. Yeah. So
they will bring you colored eggs, or did you just put the eggs?
No, I got the little plastic ones you can put stuff in.
Okay, gotcha. I'm with you now.
Yeah, you can get a lot of things delivered though, Pete.
Reminds me my favorite. I presume he nicked it from somewhere, but I can't say for sure. But the Steve Bick line relating to Easter, his faux brag after giving out a nice winner. Do you know what I'm talking about here?
No.
If I tell you it's Easter, start coloring eggs. Genius. Okay, we are official, but doesn't necessarily mean it's updated this second. Let's see if it did. It did not. So we will wait yet another minute. NFL thoughts and the NFL thoughts for the weekend. We're playing in the Circus Survivor, and there's only one direction for us to go at this point, JK. It's been a chaotic first couple of weeks in the NFL.
Well, this makes me sick to say because I'm I'm a supporter of how good the Lions are, but I've started my power rankings, doing it the way I like to, with all the, big emphasis on third down, mixing in lots of other things like that, because I think third down is the most indicative of an offense. If you're converting third downs, it means you run the ball well. If you're converting third downs, you have a good play call or a good quarterback. It's all encompassing, in my opinion, the third down. Arizona is ranked number 1 as my number 1 overall team right now. And I understand that they're not the best team in the NFL, trust me. But I do think that there's an opportunity with them that they're a little undervalued. So I have Arizona +3 as one of the games we might play. I have Jacksonville being horrible, so Buffalo is a game that we might play. And those are a few to name.
I have half an idea. I'm worried. So how does it work? AFC games are AFC games ever on Fox? Because I was going to try to hit you up for tickets to see the NFL in London again, potentially on the day after Champions Day. But I'm worried that you were able to hook me up last time because it was a Fox game, and I'm worried.
I would have think. Well, not. I mean, there is some AFC games. Well, now that you mention it, I think a pure AFC matchup is likely on CBS.
That's what I'm worried about. I'll check, and maybe it's possible it's different because it's London, right? So I'm not going to give up just yet, and we'll find somebody. We'll find some other lever to pull on to get tickets. It's a friend's birthday, so I'm hoping to take him. All right, Wendy Long currently in first place, 59.60. Steve McNathan, Stefan Gravina, Mark Rudy, Terrence Frank, William Smith, Mike Sutton, Max Schnepp, Daniel Edwards, Rogelio Garcia, Howard Kaplan, Chris Littlemore, former Eclipse Award-winning horse player, Michael Saletta, doing very well on our tour here, up there as well, double-barreled, Ryan Henderson, Howard Johnson, and Dave Nichols, who won his BCBC entry recently and came onto BCBC Diaries. Tony Schiavone, presumably not the wrestling announcer, but I can't be sure, in 18th. All right, give me 30 seconds of whatever you got.
Oh my goodness, I'll do karaoke. No, I'm just kidding. Does anybody have any questions? Oh my gosh, what am I going to talk about? Hold on, let's talk about. This is what I like to do. Let's go to DRF and see if there's anything interesting. All right. Okay, let's see here. Nope, nothing interesting there. So that's fun. Pete left me hanging here. Didn't really get me prep for this. Torpedo Anna is running this weekend. I said it. We did a YouTube video. I'm really excited to see how she runs, because if she runs fast again, then you can believe the 111 buyer that her and Fierceness earned in the Travers. And if that's the case, if that 111 buyer is real, then I absolutely love Fierceness in the Classic. So we'll see. I'm excited to see how she runs as a fan, because I'm a fan of hers, and she earned that with her performance in the Travers. But also just for some future information gathering, I'm interested to see how she runs. So make sure you check out that video on YouTube. It hasn't been posted yet, but it will be soon. So, but you should just go there and turn on notifications anyways. I think Pete's
I'm sure you're on it. I'm sure that'll be happening in short order. All right, buddy. We'll let you go and keep the show rocking and rolling here. JK, always appreciate you. Check out the Players Pod with us. That'll be dropping tomorrow, and we'll be back next week.
Bye, Pete. Have fun.
Cheers, bud. All right. Good to hear from Jonathan as ever. So we're getting near the hour mark. Chris has a question about buyer methodology. I'll tell you what, that's an easy one. I mean, the man wrote several books, so I would check it out. I think the methodology is best laid out in Picking Winners. It's one of the great books ever written about horse racing. So I would definitely check out Picking Winners, the whole buyer methodology laid out in there. But, it's all about the idea. The basic idea is the idea of most traditional speed figures, which is trying to establish how fast or slow the track was that day. And then coming up, looking at par figures, what they usually run for that level. And then putting 2 and 2 together to make 4, in this case, the buyer speed figure. Our man is early. We promised he would be here. I thought I was going to hang solo with the crowd for a little bit, but I don't have to do that, because I can now welcome to StreamYard and our broadcast here for HorsePlayers Happy Hour, Ray Cotolo. Ray, what's going on, buddy?
Pete, I don't know if you can tell, but I may or may not be broadcasting from the afterlife. Things are quite halogenic.
Yeah, there's a glow out there. What's happening? I don't know what defending your life situation. I don't know.
Good reference. Fantastic Albert Brooks movie. But no, yeah, every morning I wake up, look out the window, and ask that same thing. What the hell is going on? I don't know. You never know. But maybe that's the fun.
That is a lot of the fun. Now, you are both a flat racing fan and a harness racing fan. You're going to help us out here in looking at this last race in about 18 minutes from Belmont at the Big A. Then we are going to hop over to our live stream feed for the Little Brown Jug, but we have a primarily flat audience here. I know you did a great job in the video we did sort of laying out the similarities, Breeders' Cup, Breeders' Crown, but I wouldn't mind a little reprise of that answer to explain to this Breeders' Cup loving audience about the significance of these important harness races as we approach Harness's Championship Day, the Breeders' Crown.
Absolutely. I was going to add on, too, because I overheard you and JK discussing turf racing earlier, that harness racing in a lot of ways kind of plays like turf racing as well, just in terms of how vital trip is and how a lot of it is kind of just how it unfolds as it goes versus who is the fastest horse. But I was careful about whether or not I wanted to say anything about that because some people love turf racing. Some people don't love turf racing. But yeah, like the Breeders' Crown it's the same as the Breeders' Cup in a lot of ways. The Breeders' Cup, though, has more moving parts. Of course, there's the Win and You're In series, where if you are able to win in specific group races, then you're guaranteed a slot in some division. And of course the divisions are different too. In flats, there's the sprint, the dirt sprint, the turf route, the turf sprint. In standardbreds, the Breeders' Crown is divvied up purely just by your gait, which is there are pacers and there are trotters. That's just how they move their legs. Pacers are faster than trotters. And then we just divide them by age. 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, older horses. We try to keep it simpler than the flats do, because 12 divisions already is enough. If we start like adding mixed distances and stuff, it's good. It would be a series that would last a week. And honestly, now that I talk about it, that sounds like a great idea. A week.
It's like us. Yes.
I mean, it's like, that's basically Little Brown Jug week. It's just racing that just never stops. There's 21 races there today. Yesterday, there were 22. I think in the whole week, they raced like 100 races in 4 days.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Let me get back to my ultimate newbie question to you about trotters versus pacers. Mm-hmm. What determines what? What determines which gait you are? Is it a pedigree thing? Is it they're the same breed, but what's going on? Can one horse do both? Like give me the tell me like I'm 5 answer about
I'll give you the tell you like you're 5, but also I'll kind of imply Santa Claus isn't real, if you get what I'm saying. So the standardbred comes from a famous thoroughbred named Messenger, who was imported from England to America, and a lot of those horses come from him. And then they eventually come from Hambletonian, of course, the namesake of the big marquee race inside of harness racing. He's considered the grandfather of all trotters. But the natural gait for many horses is the trot. I mean, you look at other animals too, cats, dogs, you watch how they move when they don't gallop. Trots it's an easy way to balance the body and move forward. With pacers, they have to be rigged a certain way where then they get their legs to move. I guess it would be laterally, where if the whole right side moves forward and the whole left side moves back, while trotters we call them square gated, diamond gated. There are many different terms for it, but there are also instances where the horse just does what it wants. Like genetically, they will be preconditioned to want to pace if they come from a pacing bloodline or from a trotting bloodline. But there are many examples of horses that have trotting and pacing blood inside of them, and maybe they're a trotter, maybe they're a pacer. There are some horses that switch gaits during their career, and it's kind of an anomaly thing, but to kind of answer your question, it's somewhat genetic, but it's also kind of a mystery of why they do it.
There's a little bit of Durf. I'm reading a comment.
There is a horse named Durf, actually. Durf Hanover.
There's a little bit of a turf dirt analogy, but not really, right? Nobody's going back and forth.
No. If you're talking about like in turf racing, how like it can shuffle so easily, if that's what you're saying, because I'm kind of lost in.
horses that will run on turf one race and run on dirt another race. You're never
Oh yeah. No, they don't switch that consistently. But like, there are some horses where when they switch gaits, like they'll be trotting one week and then pacing the next, but they'll try and stay inside of that pacing gait or that trotting gait.
It's fascinating. It's really, really interesting. How far back do you go with racing? I assume pretty far back.
So let's see. I watched my first race with interest, I think, at 10 years old.
Okay.
And I'm 25 years old at this point. So I've been doing, Pete, I've been doing this for a decade and a half. God.
Pretty funny.
15 years. But most of it with harness. Actually, I started with thoroughbreds, and then I got into harness a couple months after I started watching racing, and it's been a learning experience all 15 years. I would say probably only in the last 4 do I feel like I have any good understanding of what's going on.
Very funny. What about the Breeders' Cup as an event specifically? I assume that's one you tune into, even though you're more on the standard bred side these days. It's sort of an unmissable one on the flat. You have any particular good memories, either of great performances or wagering hits or misses?
My family had 2 big points on the calendar always marked for horse racing days. The Kentucky Derby, of course. We would always have a taco party on
Nice.
Kentucky Derby Day. And then this was also back when my dad wrote for, do you remember American Turf Monthly?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember your dad's byline in there, in fact.
Exactly. Yes. My dad did some stuff ahead of the Breeders' Cup too, if I remember right. And the Breeders' Cup, of course, was the other weekend. We would always have a big celebration on the Saturday, because the Friday was always like the racing was kind of at night, and it didn't really work out for our schedules. But the first Breeders' Cup memory I have is, well, for one, I was able to give my dad tips to bet through his YouBet account back in the day.
YouBet, there's a callback,
right? And
someone of your age probably shouldn't know.
I'm probably the only person my age who does. They see YouBet now and go, I go there for sports, buddy. There was other stuff before. It used to be Ladbrokes, but I was also thinking this too. What does it say about you as a horse player where you have more bad beat memories than good win memories?
But I think that's something about the human brain that does that to us. I really do. I think that this idea of the level of teachers that mistakes can be, and then also it's just for whatever, it's what I tend to remember. I can, it's big scores that I would need to be prompted on. I can get into the intricacies of bad beats. I think that there's something in the brain about that.
I'm definitely in my brain, which is constantly trying to tear me down. It's only my body that keeps me up, believe it or not. All of this is to say, I liked California Flag when he was racing in the turf sprint.
Yep.
And I, as a 12-year-old, was going to say something to my dad about it. But then I was like, no, I'm going to give him a different horse because I'm not even that big a believer in myself. And sure enough, I think it was Joe Talamo rode the horse. Sure enough, here's little Joe bursting through. He went through, I think he paid like $40 when he won the turf sprint. If I remember correctly.
That was the wrong year.
I think it was 2010 or 2011.
Yeah, it was 09 actually.
Oh, 09, yes, because that was on the cusp of before I got into harness. I was mostly looking at the thoroughbred stuff. Yeah, California Flag, I have a vivid memory of. The only other vivid Breeders' Cup memory I have, well, I have 2 others I'll go through. The year that Zenyatta was going against Blame, I went all around Penn National to every single person at the simulcast, and I let them know Blame was going to win. And I guess that was probably what perpetuated my tout career. But then more recently, I almost had like probably the greatest handicappers tout outcome ever, because we talked about this on the hit we did for YouTube, how I had a little stint in England. Well, I was in America, but I was betting a lot of England. And I saw the draw when the Breeders' Cup was at Keeneland for, I think it was the Juvenile Turf Sprint. And there was a horse named Dramatized that I saw in the pre-entries. And being familiar with England, I knew how destructive in like in the dominating way Carl Burke is inside of sprint races. And so the moment I saw he had a horse in, I went, this horse is the winner. And no joke, Pete, I had probably like $200, which is a lot for me in my bankroll. I almost was all in on this horse inside the juvenile turf sprint, and they're turning for home. I had probably maybe like $4 or $5 grand in hits ready to come in as I see Ryan Moore work the perfect pocket trip, and he's coming up through, and then sure enough, Godolphin comes from last. Will Buick, actually, he shifts the rail to the inside, so he has a seam to get through, and Nip dramatized at the finish. And so, yeah, I think that was one of the last Breeders' Cup races, I bet.
Oh, my God. Yeah, back in 22. Mischief Magic coming from the clouds to run down, dramatized in the final strides.
Carl, if you're watching, I'm sorry. You wanted that Breeders' Cup win, but you got the Ray Cotolo dagger.
That's very funny. He's got he might be represented at this year's Breeders' Cup, and definitely one that folks should be taking a look at. I'm very much looking forward to our In the Money Plus coverage of all of our In the Money coverage, but In the Money Plus, particularly on these Euros this year, we're going to have more and better info than ever before. Trip notes, buyer fig equivalents, all kinds of good stuff. Encourage folks to check that out. We'll be promoting it once it gets closer to being live, much more so, but inthemoneypodcast.com/plus, the place to go for that. We have a question about someone you may or may not know, Ray. Chris asks about the name Brittany Wilfong. Wonders if you might be familiar with the Wilfong family in the harness world. Is that a name that means anything to you?
Yes, I actually got to meet Kyle Wilfong when back in the day I hosted a podcast called North American Harness Update, and we were able to travel to many different racetracks. One of the tracks we traveled to was Hawthorne. And what's funny is if you actually go on YouTube, you can find a sketch that we shot with the drivers where I went back and I gave them a pep talk. And Kyle Wilfong, if I remember correctly, is in that sketch along with some other guys like Tyler Sheehan, who I ended up crossing paths with again at Oak Grove. Travis Seekman, I think, is in that sketch too. Oh, God, I can't remember who else is in that. But it was one of the rare things, because that was one of the things we were wanting to do, was we wanted to try and make it more of like a variety broadcast, given the fact that we only had so many resources to actually pull off this type of stuff. But yeah, otherwise, you know, I'm more acquainted with Kyle. I've never met Brittany, but Kyle is also good friends with another friend of mine, Jay Hochstetler, who trains at Harrah's Hoosier Park. And sure. Jay and I actually met at Vernon Downs the very first weekend I announced harness races, because he was still stabled up there. I hung out with him at the bar when he was there with his dad, Homer, and really got to know him there. So, I mean, yeah, you can ask me a lot of people inside a harness. I've probably crossed paths with them at some point, and hopefully they have something nice to say about me.
That's the real question. Yeah,
right.
Brittany and Kevin, brother and sister, apparently. Very, very cool. All right, how many minutes do we have for this race? We have a few. So let's before we talk about this race, not that many, 5.
That's like, what, 10?
Yeah, set us up for what's going to happen on the next live stream. We're going to close this, and then a moment later, you're going to hit the new live stream, which will be available not on the Breeders' Cup channel, but if you're watching this on the In the Money Media YouTube channel, stick with Breeders' Cup until this is over, but then come over to the In the Money Media YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and then stick around to watch the stream. But what will people be seeing, Ray?
Oh, Pete, they're going to be seeing vibes like they've never seen before, because we're going to be having a jolly good time talking about Little Brown Jug. As a matter of fact, I can tell people right now, the first elimination just went, and a horse I gave out on the video just won in that elimination.
Which one?
Captain Albano.
That's right. The rest
off at 3-1.
Yeah, That's fantastic.
Just won in the first elimination, so we'll probably recap the first elimination. The second elimination should probably be going around when we go live on that, and so we'll follow along there, talk some of the other in-between races, answer questions that people might have about harness racing. But most importantly, Pete, and you can attest to this too, as much as we like to make money and have good opinions and do well at this stuff, it's also just about having fun. We just want to have fun. Just get all the guys together and just chat about something we love, and just create a fun atmosphere. That's all we want to do.
We have a good question from Chris about the concept of elimination. These are heats run back the same night. That the answer is yes, but I'll let Ray explain a little bit more how it works exactly.
They used to race 4 times in a day. Can you believe that, Pete? The heats could sometimes go 4 ways, because if you had like 3 eliminations and there were 3 different winners from each heat, it would come down to an ultimate final heat. Eventually, then 3 heats kind of became the norm. Of course, you can think back in Hambletonian, one of the most famous 3 heat events, Park Avenue Joe Probe in 1980, coming down to the wire. Tom Durkin, the announcer of that race specifically. But the whole idea was initially, it's rooted in the same thing. Who has the best horse? And the way that they decided who the best horse was could a horse win twice in one day? That's kind of where the heats sprung from. And now it's become more of this, it's gathered some modern elements to it. We only go 2 heats as the limit. Whoever wins the second heat is just the overall winner of the race, in part because some people don't want to race their horses 3 times in a day, but it's still rooted in that tradition of where racing came from, which was we'll race them as many times as we want in the day, figure out who the ultimate winner is. And so the Little Brown Jug at this point it might be the only heat race left in North America, now that I think about it, because the Hambletonian used to do heats, even just a couple of years ago before they transitioned back to eliminations the week prior. But the Little Brown Jug, especially being a fair track and that kind of grassroots type of environment, they just try to keep that tradition going and just try to keep those elements of harness racing's history still running.
So how does it work in terms of like the fields for the eliminations? Like how many start out, how many end up in the final? How does it work at the Little Brown Jug?
Well, specifically for the Little Brown Jug, it's going to be the top 4 finishers from each elimination, presuming that there's 2, which there are this year. If there were 3, then sometimes they do the top 3 and then they'll have a trailer, which would be a 9th horse inside of the race, or they'll do some other type of draw by lot based on where horses finish. And so at the Jug specifically, there is an incentive in how you finish in the elimination. If you win your elimination, you're going to draw between posts 1 and 2. If you're second, you're going to draw between posts 3 and 4. Of course, it makes the eliminations more interesting because sometimes if you can just kind of mosey your way into the final, you might not necessarily be urgently trying to get a second or a third in some of your races. But inside of the Jug, if you win the race, you get to draw one of the 2 best posts on the track to go for the big money. And so you're probably going to see a lot more pedal to the metal. I mean, Captain Albano just won in 149 and 2, which may be close to the track record, if I remember right.
It's amazing. Let's talk about this Aqueduct race for a minute. We'll obviously get back to Little Brown Jug activity when we hop onto the other screen. I unfortunately have another deadline I forgot about, Ray, but I'll hang with you for the first. I'll help you get kicked off there for the first 15 minutes.
Good.
So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully we can keep some of this audience we've got watching us. But I know you had a look at this race. I was going to be a homer for our friends at Glen Hill Farm and take a look at their runner in here, Bourbon Milk Punch, second-time starter who I'm expecting to improve after showing speed early and yet still shaping like one who'd appreciate the extra distance with a gorgeous pedigree. But do you have something more creative, something a little bit of a price for us?
Yeah, this is interesting because when you told me it was going to be the last at back, I was thinking it was going to be like a 40,000 maiden claimer and not a maiden special for 2-year-olds.
Decent race, yeah.
But I mean, this is a tricky race because it doesn't look like there's any type of speed, but at the same time, the turf races you don't really go gate to wire in a lot of them, even in the sprints. I saw earlier Joel Rosario was able to burst through. He's got an interesting one for Cherie DeVoe, Panache, 16-1. I wouldn't be opposed to that just because I like the horse cutting back in distance after a race where very clearly probably expelled a lot of energy before the race when trying to load. So going back to a sprint might be able to work into a good trip. Price-wise, looking at this board too, the 10 is the next most logical for me also. Pretty Liza. I just like the fact that she kept trying through trouble, gaining ground through trouble, and with that wide draw, I mean, on one hand, she might have to travel a lot of ground if she can't cross over well, but on another, she seems like she has a little bit of fight to her and should be able to at least get a little close, and she's 9-1.
Yeah, so it's a nice price. Frankie Dettori in the irons, and one that That's licensed to improve second out. Really interesting pedigree cross on that one. Cantharos Galileo cross. First time I've seen that, but it's intriguing for sure and suggests that, who knows, maybe turf sprinting from the sire side is what that one wants to do. We've just been talking through the races, but I'm not going to dissuade you if you want to call it.
Oh, no, I mean, I could just, I don't need to call it race.
Okay. I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Michelle Yu always gets, who somehow we've avoided having this year on this show. We'll have to correct that injustice before too long. She gets upset if I don't let her call. So I want to have to let, if you've got that club in your bag, I want to offer. Big late money for the 5 here, Bourbon Milk Punch. We'll see if she can live up to it, just getting shorter all the time as the gates are getting ready to pop here at Belmont at the Big A. 1 left to load. From a wagering strategy point of view, what would you do in this situation?
Oh, I wonder if I want to bet the 10.
Ooh, the 10 is acting up as soon as I looked away. Would it be a double win bet situation? Would you go for the gusto with an exacta? Would you throw anybody else in? Edison really wants you to call the race, right?
I mean, I could call the race if people really want me to. But I think what I would probably do is I would probably put a win bet in on the 2, just given the price, and then I would probably wheel her underneath and like exactas and tries, because just the price is too good for me to not use her in that way. And I feel like the 5 is a default favorite inside of this race too, just because you see the figure in a race of unproven horses, and on top of that, she was gaining ground, and so it just feels like everyone has to go to her when, especially in a maiden race, you're better off trying to give more allowance to these horses to grow and do better than what they've already shown. And
I hear you. If it wasn't for the fast pace and the homer aspect of the pick, I probably would have agreed with you. Those were the 2 things that pushed me in that direction. So if you're talking about wheeling the tribe, will you separate contenders from non-contenders, or will you just go all?
Like for a try, sometimes if I'm really on the fly, I'll admit I've done all just because I'm trying to punch it in time and I don't have time to think. But I probably would use horses like, it looks like the 10's going to scratch.
Yeah, 10's out.
I'd probably use like the 5 and the 6 on top, and then I would just keep punching variations. I keep the tickets fairly slim, but I try to just kind of wheel within who I have as my contenders.
Gotcha.
And for me, I have the 2-5. I had the 8 as a contender too, but she scratched because I thought she would be speed, and this race generally has no speed whatsoever. So I have no clue.
There's not a lot of encouragement in that regard. Now jocked off the 3, but I think that's just to load.
Yeah, they got to reload everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think because of the pace in the Bourbon Milk Punch race, there might be some assumption that she is going to be the early leader this time around. We'll see how it plays out here in a second. I'm not sure. Definitely some potential for chaos. And that idea you mentioned about being interested, I mean, first-time starters and second-time starters both, they have kind of their own angles that sometimes do defy the market, right? Because the market is so figure-based, as you were pointing out. And you can, especially finding the right barns who are going to improve more than average second up. Please don't tell me they're taking them all out. Are they taking them all out?
Yeah, of course they're taking them all out. That's the rule. They got to do that.
Okay, well
they can't just do it like in England where they'll scratch the horse and maybe even just leave it in the gate and then just tell the jock, don't go. Don't go.
A very different world. So we're not going to get messed up with our start time for our other broadcast, are we? That's my fear.
Well, with YouTube, once you get past that time where it's scheduled, it just lets you go live at any time. So we're fine in that regard.
We'll be all right. We may be a minute late. But what time are you scheduled for 25?
For 25. So in
we'll
5 minutes.
We'll just make it, assuming no more Michigas here. Because
I don't know, maybe the jocks are gonna kind of gossip with one another.
It seems that way, or is this just where we going to dinner tonight? I don't know. Where
do jocks go to dinner?
Sadly, they with the weight of scales being what it is, it's fairly limited options. But yeah, it seems like something out of the ordinary is happening here. I think it's safe to say, but. I don't know. Did somebody just go back in? There's at least one horse in the gate.
I think it's taking them a while to unload everybody.
Pretty. I mean, usually when it's the. I thought.
Oh wait, I wonder. Did Frankie get up when he got thrown? Because they might be going to look at him.
Oh no, that's terrible. I didn't even think of that. I that could be.
Yeah, no, this is one of those tricky things too, because like on one hand, when you're broadcasting, you don't want to like cut the camera to someone who might be injured.
You can't.
Yeah, like that just ethically too, that doesn't feel good. But then when we're in a situation like this, like I don't have the feed on either, so I can't hear what the announcer might be saying, what they know. But then that leaves the public then wondering more what's going on.
All right. Well, you know what we might do is maybe we'll wrap.
Wait, okay, they got the 7 out. What's Frankie's colors? White and red Saratoga emblem. I'm trying to see if he's standing.
Yeah, I can't see back there. We'll give this another minute, but what we'll do is if we get to a couple more minutes and there's going to be a sizable delay here, we will just wrap this. We'll do the final leaderboard on the other show. I'll put it out for Breeders' Cup on social, so I feel like we won't be shortchanging what we're supposed to be doing.
And you'll have to trust I called the perfect race.
Exactly. I don't know. There looks like they might be. No, it's
okay. Wait, they're starting to reset. So maybe I just was overly cautious in what the delay was.
Yeah, I mean but it did seem unusual with the way they were sort of standing around. It seemed like there was some locus of concern, but we'll give it another minute and then we'll because it's going to take then another 3 minutes after the race, and I'll make the call very quickly here.
As a gambler, when you see especially 2-year-olds unload like this, do you? Because I don't really care what my bets are in a situation like this, but will you actually alter what you have bet because the circumstances of the start have changed?
I usually will leave it just from experience, unless it's something like when that 10 first flipped out, if I would have canceled what I could on the 10.
Okay.
Let's see what Mike says. Why wouldn't they bring the 7 out front of the gate with? So he did suggest that the Tory was down, but unless Mike, you're just going on what we're saying. We don't know that.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure it out here.
But they're remounting, so it looks like they're gonna start loading.
All right, we'll stick with it. We're gonna stick with it. What is the status of the next elimination at Little Brown Jug?
7 minutes to post.
Might work out absolutely perfectly then. Though they sometimes I feel like they go shorter than the scheduled post time in harness race. Is that just in comparison?
If a harness race went off at 1 minute to post time, then believe that Jesus himself might have come back.
They will drag once they get to 0. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I mean, sometimes they go at 0. It depends on the place, but no, you're never going to see a track go before 0.
Gotcha.
In harness.
No, I mean, I saw it once with a steeplechase race. I got shut out of what would have been a winning bet at Saratoga because there was just some miscommunication, and with like 2 minutes on the clock, they were off.
Well, and because those are standing starts too, sometimes if everyone just gets their horses started at the right time, they're like, well, there's not really much we can do. They're
rare.
Already running.
Yeah, very rare. It happened once, but it was, of course, just another bad beat, the type of which that we remember in this game. All right, let's see. I figure this is it. Yeah,
they're loading in now.
Getting ready. I don't know. You know what? If only there was a place where people just posted random stuff that was happening, like Twitter, that we could look up to see what was going on. Let's see if there's any reports on what that actually was happening.
Yeah, I was also trying to see if Frankie might have been standing at the rail, but
he was attended to by EMT personnel, according to David Grenning, who's the best for these things. So, I mean, he must be all right. I mean, it feels like he has to be okay that they were able to get this resolved this quickly. So let's hope.
Well, now they're in.
All right. It's up to you here. I'm not going to make
my famous catchphrase. They are in. And my second famous catchphrase. They are off. Miriam's fire blasting forward to about a length lead over Bourbon Milk Punch. Running towards the rail, third comes Panache as every vote counts. Now caught between horses, advancing outside that one yesterday into fourth. Back sixth then, Banner 18, just to the inside of Silent Dreamer. And last of all, Bossy Pants running to the far turn behind Miriam's Fire through a 22-3 first quarter, still leads by a length as Bourbon Milk Punch now starting to get shaken a touch to the outside as Panache races bottled to the inside of Yesterday, advancing now 3 wide. Meanwhile, from the back, sweeping move by Bossy Pants, now rushing up into 4th, now 5th, as every vote counts begins to level off in between, spinning to the top of the stretch. Miriam's Fire holding a length lead as Panache now bursts through. Panache with a run coming after Miriam's Fire. Bossy Pants to the center of the track. Bourbon Milk Punch, no punch today. Miriam's Fire, 16th pole, holds a length lead from Panache. Not advancing. Miriam's Fire holding sway, and Miriam's Fire neck win from Panache. Bossy Pants and Bourbon Milk Punch to the inside 4th.
That was tremendous call, and a great pick. Big price in second.
Great pick for a loser.
Well, you gave him the exacta though. You gave him the exacta. So,
I will say though, in my loose following of NYRA races, I've only gathered one thing, and it's for some reason Dylan Davis always pays $40.
There you go. That was one of the big stories at Saratoga this year. Everybody knew how hot he was, and he still had like a 270 ROI riding whatever it was, 7 a day. Incredible meet for him, and very live with long shots, and just a terrific pull by you to go with Panache, who I'll tell you what, your exacta here with the Dylan getting the win on Miriam's Fire ahead of your Panache with Rosario in second. It's gonna pay. It's gonna pay okay. So we'll see that. Yeah. We'll make sure to highlight that before we wrap this and get on to the next.
Probable is 198, so 197 to 1. That exacta.
You cannot get analysis like this just anywhere, folks. And this isn't even his main discipline. So there you go, and a terrific race call as well. It's going to be a hell of a try with Bossy Pants in third there. Yeah, you ended up being right. Bourbon Milk Punch ran like a default favorite. There or thereabouts, but as you said, no punch in the lane, doesn't get the job done. We're going to have some big balloons posted up here on the board, and this is going to obviously have major implications in this contest. We'll take a quick run through and see who's got the 4s on this HorsePlayers Happy Hour leaderboard. It's nobody up near the top. Where this is going to be a funny one. I mean, we're down.
Oh, one person with 4.
That's Jackson. That's our boy Jackson Muniz from Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge Diaries. I'm hoping he filmed himself watching that race, because he's going to get to add a cap horse to his score, and it's going to put him in good position. Oh, that's great for Jackson. Excellent stuff. Chris, thanks for joining us. He was very impressed with your call as well, and I'm sure the pick too, as he's an ace when it comes to studying form and picking long shots himself. This is so fun. Hopefully we don't jam anybody up too much by being this late to the other stream. You think we'll be okay? I feel like at this point we're pot committed to see these payoffs, given that you gave it out.
The way that I see it, Pete, sometimes you're late to the function, and what are you going to do? Just endlessly apologize, or just show up late? You got to just show up late. They'll deal with it.
We'll be fashionably late. Who else do you have on the other show tonight?
That's a good. So we got the usual folks from the Harness Players podcast. I've gotten word that Edison Hatter's plane arrived. Nice. Always good news when you hear a plane arrived.
Very good.
Well, who knows with him, honestly? Tough to tell. But he will be
rocket.
On. Yes, I mean, gosh, I was just having a debate with him earlier today about gravity. Mike Prebosi of the Harness Players podcast will be there too. In the Money Media's intern on the harness side, Kevin Plaucha, is going to be on as well. And who knows who else might show up. It's tricky. We wanted to get more people who are on site at the Jug to be on, but because there's like 20 or 30,000, maybe even more people at the Delaware County Fair, and they're all on one cell tower, it's impossible to get a hold of anyone.
Oh, they need that's my suggestion for an improvement for them. Get better cell service. When it was empty yesterday morning, we struggled with Edison, but we pulled you in from the bullpen and you gave out a winner. So, maybe it was exactly as it was meant to be.
It's a catch-20. Oh, it's official?
It's official. You're on exacta duty. I'm on contest duty. So if whoever
just
goes,
as I close Twin Spires.
I can do both. I can do both.
No, I got it. It's okay.
We'll
It's
see.
okay, we're loading. I got fast internet. Okay, I pay extra.
That's good. All right, we are official here. Let's see what happened.
Oh, it's the famous Naira. It's official, but we're just gonna show the horses walking back to the paddock shot.
It was weird. It was the wrong, like, I don't know if you saw that when I was refreshing. It put up the wrong information for a second. It had the two winning the race. Very weird. But in the end, it is Jackson Muniz from Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge Diaries. He will be playing in the HorsePlayer Happy Hour playoffs with his winning total of 9,250. Joining him by hitting the exacta Derek Huno, then Dennis Clark, Steve Nemitz, Wendy Long, which is funny because they're partners in life, and it's good to see their names back to back on the leaderboard. Matt Letexier, Stephen McNatten, Stefan Gravina, Howard Kaplan, Mark Rudy, Terrence Frank, Chris Littlemore, Howard Johnson, Zachary Agamenoni, Dave Smythe, William Smith, Mike Sutton getting that. No, it was at 18 spots to 18 spots. So Max Schnepp holding on, actually winning the tiebreaker, Max over Sean O'Malley. Okay, we are out of here. Thanks to Ray, thanks to JK, thanks to all of you for listening. Thanks to our friends at the Breeders' Cup. Until the next time, may you win all your photos.